Yes, sir. Welcome back to another Trap or Die film session. I am your host of the Trap or Die podcast, Mual, Jamal Forrest. And listen, on this film session, we're here to break down Ben Sinnott, Kansas State tight end, Washington Commanders second round draft pick, one of three in that second round. But look, we're going to talk about Ben Sinnott on this film session. We're going to talk about some of the areas in which he was used around Kansas State, but I also think how some of those that versatility is going to translate into Washington's side. You know, he's a versatile player. He's active in the run game. He's effective in the pass game. So I think there's some good and bad takeaways, things that I think Washington can hone in on, and some things that I think that they should stray away from when it comes to Ben. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the film session. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Ben Sinnott coming up next. All right, so one thing that is standing out from Ben a good amount of times is like his frame, obviously, but also how he can take over at the break point with his play strength. I don't think he uses it as often as he could, but I also think that there is some capability, right? I think he does a good job with the second level, managing the traffic there. But also when you're facing a defender who's sitting at your landmark, how are you able to separate that? Obviously, if you haven't found him yet, it's at the bottom of your screen, breaking on a post route right now. But getting rid of that traffic, right? Being able to separate at the break point. If the quarterback held it just a little bit longer, right? You're able to see how much separation he was able to create from that alone. A lighter DB, but nonetheless, being able to separate at the top of your break point, taking advantage of that mismatch is what makes that stand out. But you do see some instances where his play strength takes over to that degree. All right, so here's our inline rep from Ben Sinnott. You're going to see him towards in between the hashes, right? And for those who aren't familiar with inline, just being close to the line of scrimmage next to your offensive lineman, your nearest tackle, however you line up, right, from the tight end position. But against this zone coverage, you're able to see him on that second level do a good job of clearing those linebackers who are first off dropping, right, to get back into their coverage. But also, like, there is a feel for him here. The linebacker does have a feel for him, but he's able to use his foot speed and acceleration to quickly reach that landmark for the quarterback, right? But also the concentration that he has to make that completion. You're going to see this a little bit better here. Like, that's a dot. So I say that to say that's a very good catch in traffic from Ben Sinnott, being able to focus on that, find the football, but also focus on that, keep it moving, cut up field for a little bit more yards after catch, but a very tough catch, very good concentration from Ben. I mean, that's something that he does a really good job at, just being able to concentrate in traffic, make some plays in traffic to keep the sticks moving. Another example here for Ben, concentration, right? Being able to operate at the catch point. He does have some ability to catch outside of his frame, extend his arms for a full extension. He does a good job catching on the move. We're going to run this back one more time. You're seeing how he's able to be utilized. We showed a rep from the boundary. We've shown a rep from him in line, but now you're able to see him from the backfield and how he's able to run routes out of the backfield for Ben Sinnott. Just a versatile player overall in the passing game. But you're going to see in a second how that aligns in the run game as well for Ben. So as we continue down the passing lane, this is a tough over-the-shoulder catch in traffic for Ben. But first and foremost, now you're seeing him in a situation where he's selling a screen before slipping upfield, right? And again, with Ben's versatility and defenses knowing that, especially in college, you know, if you use them on the boundary, you can set up a screen like this. If you use them out of the backfield on play action passes or screen setups, you can use them in that regard. You can use them in line as a pass blocker, but he's effective in both the run and pass game, right? So this obvious slip up screen, as we know, right, is able to work well for Kansas State because of who Ben Sinnott is, but also what he can do at the catch point. And this is what we're showing right here, right? That over the shoulder adjustment. You're on the sideline, so that's good sideline awareness, but a tough catch in traffic nonetheless. Being able to make that move and secure the football when contact has arrived. Now, one more alignment. You see Ben lining up from the slot now, right? So he's to the far hash. I'm on the field side, but now you're seeing his reps from the slot. Being able to hold on to that ball in traffic. Again, another pass where he's extending outside of his frame, right? And just securing that football in traffic like that. Really good rep from Ben. Now, one of the things with Ben in the pass game is like he's mostly mental and how he separates, sometimes physical. Again, I said, for me, in my opinion, I don't think he's physical enough, but he does showcase it in some instances where he can really separate at the break point, at the top of his routes with that strength, being able to use his frame to physically impose a defender in those instances. But really, he's a mental guy. Sometimes he does have some release moves, right? He does have some ability to manipulate defenders' hips, but it's not as consistent. I don't think he's quick enough. I don't think he's necessarily the shiftiest receiver or route runner, which I think can allow defenders to stay in phase with him. But we're going to get into some of the aspects of that pass game that kind of, I think that Washington should stray away from. All right, so here we are against Kansas. He's lined up in the slot. So you're the bottom of your screen, but right inside the 40-yard line. And when I mentioned the ability to separate with play strength at the break point, you're going up against some of these more handsy or physical corners. You know, he's going to have that problem, right? It also resulted in a turnover because he wasn't able to disengage and separate from that tight end. From that defender. But those are some of the instances of what that looks like, of just being generally inconsistently able to separate with his play strength. All right, so another instance is how he's playing against press. I don't think he has a strong release plan against press, and I think that is ultimately what gets him in trouble. I don't think he's quick enough against some of these defenders in space, and some of these people who are handsy but quick with their hands, they latch onto him. He has a hard time separating from them. So again, bottom of your screen is completely essentially getting taken out of the play because he's unable to really separate or get a clean release against this press coverage. He was too early with his hands as well. That got him caught up. So that wasn't good. And here's another rep from out wide against press alignment, top of your screen, about right outside the 40-yard line. Resulting in an interception from Ben. I don't think he didn't even know it at the time that the pass was already thrown, but you kind of see the rep against press coverage, right? Not necessarily a good release plan against this coverage, but also being able to defeat the defender. He had a battle and he lost that battle. But again, against press coverage, specifically out wide and wide alignments or slot, if you have a good press corner or even a solid press corner, he's going to have some problems defeating that coverage or consistently winning against it. As we get into the run game for Ben, this is where I think he's more technically sound and not necessarily overimposing. He's not a dominant offensive player in the run game, but he knows his job. He's a willing blocker. He's competitive in this aspect, and you can always use that. And that's what helps create that versatility for Ben, right? So now you're seeing him in cross formation, slice block. They leave that edge man free right here, right? He has good hat placement. The inside shoulder of the defender is where his hat is. He's not outside. Good strength on contact. You see the blowback, right? Completely stonewalling the linebacker on the edge. That's a really good block and a really good execution of that block. Here you're seeing something similar, but now he's climbing up to the second level, right? Going essentially cross formation to that opposite side, A gap, right? And getting upfield to that second level and clearing number 6. Good strength on contact, right? Good vision, right? Getting through that hole and finding your target and meeting them with physicality, right? A really good block. Did you see that look back at the end? I've never even noticed that. Look at that. Look at Ben. Looking right at 6. Hey, that's tough. That's tough. I like that. But you see what's going on with Ben. That's a really good rep from Ben. Now we move on to the third level. He's in line again, so he's to the right of your screen, right over top of number 0. But you see, what you're seeing right now is just being able to understand, like having that feel for space, right? Locating your target, keeping your eyes on him, moving as he moves, right? And running them downfield. It's a really good rep from Ben. His handling business on the third level and staying with the block. That's the competitiveness part, right? He's not just putting a hand on him and letting him go. Like he's riding the defender along the sideline as his running back, assuming that his running back still has the football and the ball is still alive behind him, right? He didn't take himself out of the play. The running back was able to use that block and spring him for a few more extra yards. And now we see Ben out of the backfield. And remember what I said earlier, as he ran his routes from multiple alignments, how effective he is. because of how versatile he is. And now you're seeing an instance where they do use him out of the backfield as a run blocker. And again, what do we talk about as this film session went on in the run game is his vision, right? Self-IDing defenders, right? He's maneuvering through these gaps pretty well, serving himself as a lead blocker if need be. But look where his eyes are. Like, they're always on targets, right? You're able to see him scanning that second level for the nearest defender in his assignment. Clears the lane for number 9. He cuts off Ben Sinnott and able to get upfield a little bit. So I think when you see these alignments and how he's utilized as a blocker, how he's utilized in the pass game, and how teams and offenses can, specifically Kansas State and now Washington, can use him because he's versatile in this aspect, creates more opportunities for your offense to get easy yards. You're able to see him get behind defenses on that second level, on that first level, right? He understands depth. He understands the zone coverages, the zone voids. I think all of those things benefit a Washington offense who can use a versatile player who can line up in the backfield as a lead blocker, who can line up at the end line, who can line up at slot, who can line up out wide. But you want to avoid out wide because I think that if you're going to use him out there, he may be a screen blocker. Don't necessarily use him as a receiver trying to isolate him against a defensive back. It's not a good idea. Avoid that. Avoid that. And then lastly, the last thing I want to show is like his relationship with his offensive linemen. Granted, combo blocks, double team blocks, those are most beneficial for, the tight end, especially when you're working with an offensive lineman. But as you see now on the right side of your screen, 34, finishing that block, putting this guy on his edge as they sell that combo block on the first level. That's a good block. That's very good toughness. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for my film session on Ben Sinnott. Main objective was really to show you how versatile he was as where he can run his routes from, the ways in which he can be utilized to get open, and then also his ability to process coverages and create opportunities for himself, but also what he can do at the catch point. He has good hands. I don't think he's that good after the catch. I think he has some subtle shiftness and elusiveness to him, but you don't see it often. He's not creating a bunch of yak due to his creativity or his physicality or his elusiveness. Like, he's not super crafty, but I think at the catch point is where you get the most bang for your buck with Ben in the passing game. I think you need to avoid, if you're Washington, opportunities where he's going up against quicker defenders, physical defenders, like super physical defenders who are very comfortable in getting their hands on receivers and tight ends. I also think that outside of that, you're in good shape in the passing game because of where he can line up. You can hide that. In the run game, I think he's an asset. There's no negative aspects of him. He's a willing blocker. He's competitive. He's tough. Like, he's willing to take on all 3 levels of defenders. And he dominates that 3rd level defender, and he can stand up tall against those 1st and 2nd level defenders. So you can work with that. There's no weakness in that. But at the same time, if you're talking about physically imposing, there's one thing, but at the same time, you see somebody who you can trust in a one-on-one situation, so long as you hold up. But that's going to wrap it up for us on this film session. Again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it over here. But until next time, I'll take care. Peace.
Chop it down, chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Damn, set, watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.